Hello, this is Daniel from sound.headquarters.inc. In today's video, we are building this rolling floor standing panel, 6 feet by 2 feet. These are otherwise known as Gobos. And this is a great modular piece of acoustics to have in your studio. This works well for making a makeshift vocal booth or for tracking instruments and just being able to kind of control the acoustics of your space with a modular item that you can roll in and out as you need it. So let's get right into the build. We are starting off with 5/8 inch thick plywood, and the acoustic insulation that we are using is Owens Corning 703. This is 2-inch thick, and we're going to be doubling up this insulation to create our 4-inch thick panel. So the first step is to rip cut all of this plywood to our final width, which is about 4 1/4 inches. And we're gonna just go ahead and get all of our pieces rip cut, and then they will be ready to cut to final length to assemble the frame. So I'm just getting these pieces cut, and then I can also get one rip cut at 3 inches thick, and then that 3-inch piece is going to get cut down to make the inner bracing for the inside of the panel to give it some structure and rigidity, and make sure that the panel is all square, which you'll see in a moment here. So this panel, the client wanted to be 6 feet tall by 2 feet wide. So that's the dimensions that we're getting cut here on our chop saw. And once we have 2 6-foot pieces and 2 2-foot pieces, then we can begin assembling the outer frame. So I'm using a 16 gauge brad nailer, and I'm just doing about 3 or 4 nails per corner here. And I'm just laying out the panel on the floor here and nailing it off. And right now we're just getting that outer dimension nailed, just a big rectangle, and then we can add our inner bracing. So this is that 3-inch thick piece that we cut earlier, and I'm going to subtract the width of 2 pieces of 5/8 because this inner brace needs to fit on the inside of our frame that we just built. So once I have that cut, I can nail this off. And what I'm doing here is when I nail this off right in the center, I'm using my speed square just to make sure that the panel is square before I nail off that center brace. Because once we nail off that center brace, then the kind of overall dimensions of the panel is locked in, and we want to make sure it's not skewed one way or the other. We want this to be nice and square for our client here. So once we got that middle brace nailed off, then we can add the top and bottom braces, and still just using that 16 gauge brad nailer. And there you can see the finished frame, and now it's ready for insulating. So we're going to be cutting down this Owens Corning to size, and I'm just adding some small notches to go around that inner brace to make sure that this insulation does not push past the panel frame and into our fabric. We want our fabric to lay nice and flat, and I use just some pieces of masking tape there just to hold the insulation in place while I maneuver the panel with the fabric. And here I'm cutting up the acoustic fabric that we're using for this job. And the good thing about this style of Gobo is we are going to be adding a trim around the entire perimeter of the panel afterwards. So I don't have to worry about any of my staples being visible on the outer sides of the frame, because it's all going to get covered with the trim. So this trim right here is basswood trim. You can use any kind of wood you like, but this wood matches the previous video on the channel's wood for the framed acoustic panels that we built for this client. So we went ahead and used the exact same wood, just in a larger dimension. And I'm getting it cut and ripped down on the table saw. And I'm accounting for that additional width as well of the ply, because this is going to go around the perimeter. We need a little bit extra space for everything to line up. And I'm building the stand out of a cut down 2x6, and that is going to create kind of a nice stable platform for us to screw our rolling locking casters into. And I just made a simple rectangle and just 2 short pieces of 2x4, and I just put a 45-degree bevel cut on them. All just kind of a visual thing. The bevel cuts are not necessary, but we do want to make sure that we have a nice stable base. So I did cut those 2x4 leg pieces to 16 inches wide, giving us a solid 8 inches on both sides of the frame to kind of give some stability when the client is rolling this panel around. And you'll see the assembly of that come together in a little bit here. And we're applying the same whitewash that we did in the previous video to all of our exterior trim pieces and to the stand itself. And that whitewash is just 1 part paint, 1 part water, so just a 50-50 mix. And we ended up doing 2 coats on the stand here. And now we can get ready for the installation. So in the previous video, you'll see these acoustic panels get built and installed in the client studio space here. And right now I'm assembling the stands. So you can see I'm just screwing that 2x4 into the bottom of the 2x6 rectangle that I built. And I'm just making sure that this is screwed in with long construction screws, that it's nice and stable. I did about 5 screws per leg, and then I'm screwing in these locking casters, and I'm using wood screws as well for that. And now we're adding that final trim piece around. So you can see we added that top trim piece first, and then the sides on top, and this trim piece acts to hide all of the staples and cut pieces of the fabric along the outer perimeter of the panel. Once we add that trim piece on, as you can see right there, it really ties together the look of this panel and makes it so that you cannot see any staples, and gives us a nice professional finished touch to this rolling acoustic panel, this rolling Gobo. And here you can see just a quick finished shot of the client studio space, and really came together nicely with those exterior wooden frames, and the kind of textured vintage style fabric was a great kind of color combo that this client chose. I'm super stoked on how this whole job turned out. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Daniel from soundheadquarters.com. Peace out.